Everyone thinks they know how the 2026 FIFA World Cup will end. France, Argentina, Spain, Brazil. The same names appear in almost every prediction. But history tells a completely different story. Every World Cup creates a team that nobody saw coming. Croatia reached the final in 2018. Morocco shocked the world in 2022 by defeating football giants and becoming the first African nation to reach a World Cup semi-final. So here's the real question. Who's next? Not the favorites, not the teams everyone is already talking about. The ones quietly building something special.
We'll count down 5 national teams that have everything it takes to destroy the predictions for the 2026 World Cup. And trust me, the team at number 1 isn't just dangerous. It might be far closer to lifting the trophy than most people realize. Let's begin. At number 5 is a team that still doesn't receive the respect its performances deserve: Ecuador. For years, many fans have viewed Ecuador as a difficult opponent, but nothing more. That perception could become a costly mistake. This is no longer a team relying only on energy and athleticism. Ecuador has evolved into one of the most disciplined sides in South America, combining defensive organization with explosive counterattacks. Their biggest strength isn't individual brilliance, it's collective movement. When they defend, the distances between players stay incredibly compact, forcing opponents into uncomfortable areas of the pitch. Then, within seconds, that compact block transforms into a rapid attack through pace, direct passing, and fearless running. Against possession-heavy teams, that style can be devastating. One mistake, one misplaced pass, one moment of hesitation. That's often all Ecuador needs. Another reason they deserve attention is experience. Many of their key players have already spent years competing in Europe's biggest leagues, facing elite attackers every single week. That experience brings composure, especially in tournaments where one mistake can end an entire campaign. But no team is perfect. When Ecuador is forced to dominate possession against deep defensive blocks, creativity can become a problem. Breaking organized defenses requires a different skill set, and that's an area where they still have room to grow. Even so, in a knockout tournament where margins are razor thin, they possess exactly the kind of profile capable of eliminating a heavyweight. And that's why Ecuador earns the 5th spot on this list.
6.
But if you think they're the most
The
underrated
next
team
nation
in
has
the
something even more dangerous. A generation of technically gifted players, European experience, a fearless mentality, and a football culture that has produced unforgettable surprises before. Let's move on to number 4. At number 4 is a team that seems to disappear from the conversation every time a major tournament approaches, and that might be exactly where they want to be: Turkey. Football history has taught us one lesson about Turkey. The moment expectations disappear,
This is a
they
nation
become
that has always
incredibly
produced
dangerous.
technically gifted footballers. But today, the difference is balance. A new generation has emerged, and many of its biggest talents are already playing and thriving in Europe's top leagues. They've grown up facing elite competition every weekend, and that experience changes the way a national team performs under pressure. What makes Turkey so difficult to predict isn't just individual quality. It's their ability to change the rhythm of a game. One minute, they're sitting deep, inviting pressure. The next, they're attacking with speed, creativity, and complete confidence. That unpredictability can frustrate even the world's strongest teams. Another reason to keep an eye on Turkey is their mentality. This isn't a squad that enters big matches hoping to compete. They genuinely believe they can win, and belief matters in World Cup football. Just think about how many favorites have been knocked out because they underestimated an opponent that simply refused to be intimidated. Of course, Turkey still has questions to answer. Consistency has been their biggest challenge for years. They can produce a brilliant performance against a football giant and then struggle in a match they were expected to control. If they solve that problem before the tournament begins, they won't just be chasing a place in the knockout stage. They could become one of the stories of the entire competition. Before we reveal the next team, here's a question for you. If you had to choose one nation outside the traditional favorites to shock the world in 2020,
Let me know in the comments before we reach number 1. Because the next team has something that almost every dark horse dreams of. One of the most feared attacking weapons in international football. At number 3, Norway. For years, Norway was known as a talented team that simply couldn't put everything together. Now, that story is beginning to change. Yes, they possess world-class attacking talent. Yes, they have players capable of deciding a match with a single moment of brilliance. But that's not the biggest reason they're on this list. The real difference is how the team has evolved around those stars. Norway no longer depends on individual magic alone. Their midfield has become more organized. Their defensive structure is far more disciplined. And perhaps most importantly, the players finally look like a unit instead of a collection of talented individuals. That transformation could make all the difference in a World Cup. Because knockout football isn't always won by the team with the biggest names. It's won by the team that stays organized when everything becomes chaotic. Norway also carries a psychological advantage. Most of the pressure will be on their opponents. When a traditional giant faces Norway, expectations become a burden. Norway, meanwhile, can play with freedom, confidence, and the belief that they have nothing to lose. And that combination can be incredibly dangerous. Still, there's one obstacle they
Many
cannot
of their
ignore.
players have never gone deep into a World Cup knockout tournament. Managing the emotional pressure of those moments is completely different from playing league football, no matter how high the level. If they overcome that hurdle, don't be surprised if Norway eliminates one of the tournament favorites. But even Norway isn't the most complete outsider on this list, because the final 2 teams possess something even more valuable than star power. They've already shown they can compete with the very best when everything is on the line. At number 2 is a team that somehow keeps flying under the radar, even after proving itself against some of the strongest nations in the world: Colombia. Unlike many teams on this list, Colombia doesn't rely on one superstar to carry the entire squad. Its greatest weapon is balance. A disciplined defensive line, midfielders who know when to slow the game down and when to accelerate it, wingers capable of stretching any defense, and a team that rarely loses its shape, even under relentless pressure. That balance has made Colombia one of the most difficult opponents to break down in recent years. But there's something even more important: confidence. This group no longer enters major tournaments hoping to surprise people. They expect to compete with the very best. That mindset changes everything, especially in knockout football, where belief often separates the
Another
winners
advantage
from the
that
teams
many
that
fans overlook. Colombian players are used to different styles of football. Some compete in Europe, others in South America. That variety gives the coaching staff tactical flexibility, allowing them to adapt to almost any opponent. Of course, no team is without flaws. At times, Colombia has struggled to convert long periods of dominance into goals. Against elite defenses, missed chances can become the difference between celebrating a historic victory and facing an early flight home. Even so, if everything clicks at the right moment, Colombia has every reason to believe it can make a deep run in 2026. But before we reveal number 1, do you think we've left a team out? Japan? The United States? Canada? Or someone else entirely? Tell us your pick in the comments before we get to the final team. Because this isn't just a nation with talented players. It's a nation that has already changed football history once, and it may not be finished yet. At number 1, Morocco. Many people
World
still
Cup
describe
semifinals
Morocco's run
as
to
a
the tournament.
miracle. But what if it wasn't? What if it was simply the first visible result of a long-term football project? That question is exactly why Morocco sits at the top of this list. The biggest strength of this team has never been individual talent alone. It's identity. Every player understands the system. Every line moves together. Every transition has a purpose. When Morocco defends, the spaces disappear. When Morocco attacks, it does so with speed, precision, and absolute conviction. That tactical discipline allowed them to defeat some of the biggest football nations in the world, not through luck, but through organization, patience, and perfect execution. Since then, the squad has continued to evolve. Young talent has pushed for places. Experienced leaders remain at the heart of the team. And the belief created by that historic World Cup run hasn't disappeared. It has grown stronger. Perhaps the biggest mistake opponents could make in 2026 is assuming Morocco has already reached its ceiling. History suggests the opposite. Teams that build strong football identities don't fade overnight. They improve. But one challenge remains.
World Cup semifinals as a miracle. But what if it wasn't? What if it was simply the first visible result of a long-term football project? That question is exactly why Morocco sits at the top of this list. The biggest strength of this team has never been individual talent alone. It's identity. Every player understands the system. Every line moves together. Every transition has a purpose. When Morocco defends, the spaces disappear. When Morocco attacks, it does so with speed, precision, and absolute conviction. That tactical discipline allowed them to defeat some of the biggest football nations in the world, not through luck, but through organization, patience, and perfect execution. Since then, the squad has continued to evolve. Young talent has pushed for places. Experienced leaders remain at the heart of the team. And the belief created by that historic World Cup run hasn't disappeared. It has grown stronger. Perhaps the biggest mistake opponents could make in 2026 is assuming Morocco has already reached its ceiling. History suggests the opposite. Teams that build strong football identities don't fade overnight. They improve. But one challenge remains.
In 2022, Morocco played with the freedom of an underdog. In 2026, the world will be watching. Every opponent will prepare differently. Every match will be tougher. Handling that pressure could become Morocco's biggest test. And maybe the biggest surprise of the next World Cup won't be seeing Morocco reach another semi-final. It might be seeing them go even further. Because every World Cup rewrites football history. The favorites write the headlines before the tournament begins. The dreamers rewrite them after the first whistle. The only question is, which nation will become the story that nobody saw coming? And what if the biggest surprise isn't even on this list? That's exactly what